afternoon to you all. This is the Ambassador. With me, your Ambassador, Jennifer Makau. Rwandan President Paul Kagame declared Rwanda readiness to go to war with the Democratic Republic of Congo if necessary, in the response to accusations from the Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi and the Rwanda was organizing a genocide in the eastern DRC. Kagame denied Tshisekedi's claim, accusing him of promoting a genocidal ideology against the Congolese Tutsis through the decades-long conflict in the eastern Congo, displacing about 7 million people. As Kagame prepares for the fourth term in the Rwandan upcoming presidential election on July 15th, he denied the claims of the elections rigging and representing opponents, asserting his government commitment was free and fair election. The rising tensions between Rwanda and the DRC currently underscored the challenges facing Kagame and the Rwandan election as the election in the Rwanda country approaches. The crisis in Haiti has led to a surge in gender-based violence, with women and girls facing daily horrors such as the loss of loved ones and the destruction of homes, and the threat of sexual violence from the armed gangs. Since the end of February 2024, displacement has been risen by 60%, with 185 people forced in their homes in the Port-au-Prince area. The violence has severely impacted the already weakened health system, with the hospitals and the health facilities forced to close and access to the essential services like reproductive health care and clinical management of rape severely being limited. Only 3% of rape survivors are able to receive medical treatment within 72 hours, according to the UNFPA, as it's working to support the crisis response, providing essential supplies to the health facilities, deploying mobile clinics, and operating hotlines, while establishing counseling centers in the displacement sites. However, their 28 million appeal is only 19% funded, and immediate flexible funding is urgently needed to meet the needs of women and girls. That was Haiti for you. Now moving on to the next story. In a major victory for children's rights, Sierra Leone's parliament has recently approved a historic law banning of the child marriage. The new legislation outlaws marrying girls under the age of 18 and imposes jail terms up to 15 years on all offenders. Child marriage is a widespread issue in Sierra Leone, with 1/3 of all girls wedding before their 18th birthday. The country is home to an estimated 800,000 child brides to 400,000 whom are married before the age of 15, with poverty often driving families to marry off young girls, either to improve their financial situation or to pay off their debts. Here is a report.
In a landmark decision, Sierra Leone's parliament has approved a law regarding the abolition of child marriage in the country. The new decision is touted as a major victory in African nations, which is already spinning through a grievous economic crisis. According to the United Nations body, the country is home to 800,000 child brides to 400,000, of whom were married before age 15. Often, due to poverty, many girls in Sierra Leone fail to stay in school. They are then married off by their families in a bid to improve their financial situations. Child marriage has been one of the biggest problems in Central Western and Central African nations. According to the United Nations Children's Funds, 1/3 of all girls are married before their 18th birthday in West African country. Child marriage is a human rights violation. Despite laws against it, the practice remains widespread. Globally, 1 in every 5 girls is formally married or in an informal union before reaching age 18. In the least developed countries, that number almost doubles. 36% of girls that are married before age 18 and 10% of girls are married before age 15.
The International Criminal Court has unsealed an arrest warrant for Iyad Agali, also known as Abdul Fadil, a Malian national of the Tuareg ethnicity who was alleged to be the leader of the extremist Ansar Dine Islamist group. In the warrant originally issued under the seal in 2017, charged Gali with war crimes and crimes against humanity allegedly committed in Timbuktu, Mali between January 2012 and January 2013. The charges included murder, rape, sexual slavery, torture and attacks on buildings of the religious or historic significance. Here is the report.
The arrest warrant for Iyad Gali covers crimes in Timbuktu and an attack on a military base during which more than
Okay, put your mind here, Jennifer.
who are not taking part in hostilities were executed, including some who had surrendered and others who were in the base hospital. The court statement is that there are reasonable grounds to believe that he would be the undisputed leader of Ansar Dine, the extremist group which held power in northern Mali at the time. The court's prosecution office welcomed the unsealing and said that the warrant for Gali reflects the continued efforts of the office to deliver justice for those in Mali who fell victim to crimes that were committed since 2012 when Malian authorities asked the court to intervene. Mali, along with its neighbors Burkina Faso and Niger, has for over years battled an insurgency fought by armed groups, including some allied with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group. Following military coups in all 3 nations in recent years, the ruling juntas have expelled French forces and turned to Russia's mercenary units for security assistance instead.
Moving on to Niger, Niger's military government revoked the operation license of the French nuclear fuel producer Orano and the Imurinian uranium mine of the world's largest deposit of estimated 200,000 tons of the vital nuclear fuel. The decision highlighted the growing tensions between Niger's junta, which came into power in the coup last year, as its former colonial ruler France, mining at the Imurane, which was originally slated to begin in 2015, but was halted due to the collapse of the global uranium prices following the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan. Here is the report.
Ronaldo Gauss, a newly appointed South African MP, has been suspended by his party, the Democratic Alliance, on Thursday, less than a week in office. This is after videos surfaced showing him using racist language against black people 15 years ago. The DA confirmed the authenticity of the videos and said Gauss will face disciplinary action. Gauss' suspension has sparked controversy in South Africa, raising questions about the country's efforts to address discrimination. This incident is significant as it comes when Gauss' party, the DA, has joined the government coalition led by President Cyril Ramaphosa. The DA has faced past accusations of protecting white minority interests. The South African Human Rights Commission is taking legal action against Gauss over his offensive remarks. Gauss' scandal has become a test of the government's resolve to combat racism and uphold the principles of the Constitution. The public will be watching how the DA and government respond to promote reconciliation and address the legacy of apartheid.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed profound concern recently over escalating tensions between Israeli and Hezbollah militants along the border with Lebanon. Guterres warned that one rash move was a miscalculation and could trigger a catastrophe that could go far beyond the border and beyond all imagination. Since the eruption of the war in Gaza last October, Hezbollah and Israel have been engaged in daily exchanges of fire across the the blue line separating the two countries. Guterres stressed that the people of the region and the people of the world could not afford Lebanon to become another Gaza. Here is the report.
Recent Israeli airstrikes have killed at least 42 Palestinians, including 25 in an attack on Al-Shati camp. The Red Cross described the destruction as unprecedented, with piles of dead bodies, blood everywhere. Since October 7th, the Israel-Hamas conflict has killed over 37,000 and wounded over 85,000 people.
Was very close to where the impact of these hits occurred. Within moments, we had a flood of wounded people show up at the gate of our compound. There were piles of dead bodies, blood everywhere. Frankly, it's like nothing I've ever seen before.
The UN Secretary General has warned of potential catastrophe if the situation in Lebanon escalates. Amid exchanges of fire between Hezbollah and Israel, he cautioned that one miscalculation could trigger a disaster. The UN chief stressed the world cannot afford for Lebanon to suffer Gaza's fate. He called for immediate escalation, emphasizing there is no military solution. The Secretary General urged both sides to protect civilians and ensure the displaced can return home.
I felt compelled today to voice my profound concerns about escalation between Israel and Hezbollah along the blue line.
Despite UN efforts, the risk of widening conflict remains real. The Secretary General said peacekeepers work to prevent miscalculation in the extremely challenging environment.
Let's be clear. The people of the region and the people of the world cannot afford Lebanon to become another Gaza.
The UN promotes regional peace and stability. However, with Lebanon and Gaza deteriorating, the world must heed the warning and prevent further catastrophe.
And that international news brings us to our first break. Next, we'll talk about Niger's nation, who revoked French nuclear license. We are talking of the uranium mines here. And we'll see about the United Elections developments and more on the elections campaign cards that came up the sleeve. As Trump promised green cards for the foreigners in the United States colleges. We'll tell you more about it, while Russia stated that it was ready to do a dialogue, this time with NATO. What brought about this change? We'll tell you more about it and the concerns. We're also going to see about the cybersecurity topics that you can't afford to miss. We have this and more lined up for you shortly after the break. Stay tuned with us.
Are you in marriage? Are you married? Is your marriage unhappy? What are the things that you're going through and you really, really want them being answered?
I'm a relationship coach and a marriage counselor, and I'm so passionate about helping people, individuals and couples.
When you're having these people, these different people and personality, and maybe they are a couple, of whereby if you don't solve now, don't come to ask me later. And I'm in the school of thought of, we cannot talk about it now. I have to cool down and then you can discuss. Sit later. How do you strike a balance and be able to communicate peacefully and resolve our issue by the end of the day?
That's where I drive or I pick the models of marriage from the Bible stories. So that marriage model is about business and security. And even today, people are marrying because of business.
So how am I even marrying for happiness? Are we supposed even to call it for happiness, or is it because of lust and pleasures of the world?
So I'm going to search for a person who has money. I want big vehicle. I want a big house. So what do you call that? It's you're marrying because of business. The Adam's model and the Jacob's model is the best.
What is it exactly are we looking for in the last model?
So through the four gospel books, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, John, we can know the heart of Jesus in depth.
그리고 우리가 느끼는 그 예수님을 성경을 통해 느낄 수 있어서 너무 감사합니다.
And the Jesus that we can feel him through the scriptures, and I'm very thankful about that. Jesus Christ came to this earth for our
죄를
sins.
지셨고
He carried our sins,
십자가에 못 박혀 주고 죄의 형벌을 당하셨고
and he was crucified, and he received the punishment for sins,
무덤에 들어가셨다가
and he was put into the tomb
사흘 만에 부활하셨습니다.
and resurrected in 3 days.
이것이 우리가 말하는 복음입니다.
This is the gospel that we speak.
예수님께 우리 죄를 위해 죽으신 이야기.
About how Jesus died for our sins. The purpose of Jesus being
우리
crucified.
죄를 담당하기 위하여 십자가에 못 박혀 죽으셨습니다.
He was crucified to pay for our
그래서
sins.
예수 십자가에 못 박혀 죽으심으로 우리 죄가 분명히 씻어졌는데
And through Jesus being crucified, clearly our sins have been washed clean.
참 안타깝게도 많은 사람은 여전히 죄인이라고 말합니다.
However, unfortunately, many people still say that they are sinners.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. You are still watching the Ambassador GBS Global, and we are glad to have you join us today. As we continue with our news today, Niger's military government revoked the operation license of the French nuclear fuel producer Orano and the Imoreiren uranium mine, one of the world's largest deposits, an estimated 200,000 tons of the vital nuclear fuel. The decision highlighted the growing tensions between Niger's junta, which came to power in the coup last year, and its former colonial ruler France. Mining at the Imoreiren, which was originally slated to begin in 2015, but was halted due to the collapse in the global uranium prices following the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan. Here is the report.
The military seized control of Niger on the pledge of cutting ties with the West, vowing to review mining concessions in the country and ordering the withdrawal of Western troops. Orano said it has been instructed to vacate the northern Niger site, estimated to hold 200,000 tons of uranium, crucial for nuclear energy production. Development at Imoreiren had stuck since 2015 due to dropping global uranium prices following the 2011 Japanese nuclear disaster. Despite Orano's recent efforts to resume operations, Niger's mining ministry cited dissatisfaction with the company's exploitation plan in a letter dated June 20th, viewed by the Associated Press. The ministry asserted that the mine has been reclaimed by the state and stripped of all contractual rights. Junta's decision aligns with its broader agenda of reducing Western influence in Niger. This included expelling the French ambassador last year and ordering the withdrawal of French troops engaged in counterterrorism operations against Islamist militants in the region. Orano, which has operated in Niger for over half a century, expressed readiness to maintain communication with military authorities while reserving the option to challenge the license revocation through legal means, either domestically or internationally. The developments at Imoreiren mine mark a significant shift in Niger's geopolitical stance as it seeks to assert greater control over its resources amid evolving international relationships.
Now let's see what's happening in the United States as the nation approaches its elections. As former President Donald Trump suggested that the United States President Joe Biden could use performance-enhancing supplements ahead of the upcoming debate, deriding Biden's debate preparations, implying that he could be using a chemical boost to appear more formidable. Trump also criticized the debate rules and the network hosting the event during a rally in Philadelphia, a crucial city for both campaigns, reiterating of familiar themes attacking Biden's policies on issues like inflation and immigration. The Philadelphia remains a battleground with both parties actively courting voters ahead of the 2024 elections. In last year, Philadelphia were crucial to President Joe Biden's victory over Trump in 2020, with 92% supporting Biden and 7% backing Trump. Let's get the report.
As you know, it's been reported that right now Crooked Joe's gone to a log cabin
to study, prepare. No, he didn't do. He's sleeping now. Because they want to get him good and strong. So a little before debate time, he gets a shot in the ass, and they want to strengthen him up. So he comes out. He'll come out. I say he'll come out all jacked up, right? All jacked up. Now, will anybody be watching the debate on Thursday night? Krasner has the blood of countless men, women, children on his hands, including thousands of African American citizens, because he refuses to prosecute people. They don't refuse to prosecute me. I got more prosecutions than any human being. I've got more than the great Alphonse Capone. You ever hear of Scarface?
United States President Donald Trump also recently proposed granting automatic green cards to the foreign students who graduate from the United States colleges, including junior academies. Trump stated of his new dream to ensure talented individuals, especially from countries like India and China, could stay in the United States after completing their studies, lamenting of the loss of brilliant people and the top graduates that are forced to return home. However, Trump's campaign later clarified the proposal would only apply to the most thoroughly vetted foreign graduates who would not undercut American wages or workers. The proposal marks a shift from Trump's previous hardline immigration stance, through immigration advocates having expressed skepticism, noting of his administration's past efforts to force international students to leave during COVID-19.
I do promise, but I happen to agree. That's why I promise. Otherwise, I wouldn't promise. Let me just tell you that it's so sad when we lose people from Harvard, MIT, from the greatest schools, and lesser schools that are phenomenal schools also. And what I wanted to do, and I would have done this, but then we had to solve the COVID problem because that came in and, sort of dominated for a little while, as you perhaps know. And you know more stories than I do, but I know of stories where people graduated from a top college or from a college, and they desperately wanted to stay here. They had a plan for a company, a concept, and they can't. They go back to India, they go back to China, they do the same basic company in those places, and they become multi-billionaires employing thousands and thousands of people, and it could have been done here. And a bigger example is you need a pool of people to work for your companies. You have great companies, and they have to be smart people. Not everybody can be less than smart. You need brilliant people. And we force the brilliant people, the people that graduate from college, the people that are number one in their class from the best colleges, you have to be able to recruit these people and keep the people. It was such a big deal. Somebody graduates at the top of the class, they can't even make a deal with the company because they don't think they're going to be able to stay in the country. That is going to end on day one.
He's the worst president ever. The Biden administration has been nonstop catastrophe. He has been a catastrophe. It's been a nonstop catastrophe, but one of Crooked Joe's most destructive moves yet is the lawless executive action he is taking today. You've been reading in the middle of the largest border invasion in world history. There's never been a border in the world that's like this border that we have, where probably 17, 18 million people by now have entered our country illegally. Joe Biden's granting mass he's going to formally grant a mass amnesty to millions of illegal aliens that came into our country. And you have people that have been working for 10 years to try and come in legally, and they just keep working. Under this program, a deluge of illegals will be given immediate green cards and put on the fast track to rapid citizenship so they can vote. I think a lot of them are going to vote for me. You want to know the truth? Because if you look at the Hispanic population, if you look at the black population, they're voting for Trump. They're voting for Trump. You, look at you.
That was Trump for you. Now moving on to Russia. Russia stated it's open to security talks with NATO countries on conditions that Ukraine was on the table. Russian President Vladimir Putin stated that Russia was willing to engage in a broad international discussion on security issues with NATO members, as well as other international associations like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the BRICS. However, Putin emphasized that any such dialogue must address the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, as Russia has repeatedly expressed concerns about Ukraine's aspiration to join NATO, which it sees as a threat to security. Here is the report.
Putin pledged to enhance the nuclear capabilities of his nation and equip the military with state-of-the-art weaponry. Russian Defense Minister Andriy Belousov spoke after Putin and also hailed Russian troops. The briefing comes amidst other recent developments in Russia, including the commemoration of a failed rebellion led by mercenary chief Yevgeny Prigozhin, who briefly challenged Putin's authority last year. The attempted rebellion, which saw Prigozhin and his forces seize a military headquarters before being stopped by diplomatic intervention, underscores internal challenges within Russia's military structure. In response to questions regarding the mutiny and subsequent events, Putin dismissed allegations of Kremlin involvement in the fatal plane crash that claimed Prigozhin's life and those of his associates. The shift towards potential dialogue with NATO represents a notable development in Russia's foreign policy approach, signaling a willingness to engage in discussions amidst ongoing geopolitical tensions. As global dynamics continue to evolve, the international community will closely watch for further developments in Russia-NATO relations.
The United Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned that the rule of law was necessary to exist in the digital sphere, as 63 members of states and the EU expressed deep concerns over the malicious cyber threats to the critical infrastructure that could cause cross-border damage. They reaffirmed a commitment to a peaceful ICT environment under international law and welcomed the Security Council's open debate on its role addressing cyber threats to international peace and security. He further stated the linkage of the cyber threats to the international peace and security was evident, and the Security Council had a key role to play in addressing the cyber threats to fulfill its primary responsibility for maintenance and international peace and security. Here is the report.
Digital technology offers an incredible opportunity to create a more just, equal, sustainable and peaceful future for all. But breakthroughs must be oriented towards the good. The new Agenda for Peace places prevention at the heart of all peace efforts. As reflected in the new vision for the rule of law must exist in the digital sphere as it does in the physical world.
We take this opportunity to reaffirm our steadfast commitment to promoting an open, secure, stable, accessible and peaceful information and communication technologies environment in compliance with international law. We express our deep concern over malicious cyber activities targeting critical infrastructure, as they can cause cascading effects across borders and sectors, including the healthcare, maritime, aviation, space, energy, and financial sectors. We are also concerned that impacts of malicious use of ICTs may have disproportionate effects on women and children, people in vulnerable situations, and citizens of states with less capacity to address cyber threats. The linkage of cyber threats and international peace and security is evident, and the Security Council has a key role to play in addressing cyber threats to fulfill its primary responsibility for maintenance of international peace and security. We also recognize the importance of the Council's reaffirmation of the UN framework of responsible state behavior in the use of ICTs, which was adopted by consensus of all United Nations member states.
And that international news brings us to the end of our Ambassador GBS Global. It's been a pleasure having you on board, joining us to the end. Here at the Ambassador, we continue to bring you the latest updates and the global developments as you keep it locked with us. Have been your ambassador, Jennifer Macau, and I'm looking forward to seeing you here at the Ambassador, same time, same place tomorrow at 1 p.m. And may you all have the most beautiful afternoon and a wonderful, happy Monday. Stay safe.